Welcome to Memoira. In this video, we explore the life and legacy of Imam Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali, one of the most influential scholars, philosophers, and mystics of the Islamic world. From his rise as a celebrated scholar, through his profound inner crisis, to his spiritual awakening and the creation of Ihya Ulum al-Din, we uncover the journey that made him a timeless thinker. In the mid-11th century, in the city of Tus, a small but vibrant center of learning in the Persian province of Khorasan, a boy was born who would later reshape the course of Islamic thought. His name was Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali. The world he entered was full of turbulence and transformation. The Seljuk Empire had begun to consolidate its power across the Muslim world, and with it came a golden age of scholarship. Madrasas were being established in every major city, attracting theologians, jurists, philosophers, and mystics. It was an age of ideas, and of conflict between them. Al-Ghazali's early years were marked by hardship. His father, a simple wool spinner, passed away when he and his brother were still children. Yet before his death, he entrusted him to a Sufi friend, urging him to ensure that his sons would grow in knowledge and faith. That man kept his promise. The young Al-Ghazali studied with passion, moving from Tus to Jurjan, and eventually to the great intellectual hub of Nishapur. It was there that his brilliance began to shine. Under the guidance of the renowned scholar Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni, Al-Ghazali mastered the disciplines of law, theology, and philosophy. His sharp intellect, eloquence, and memory quickly set him apart from his peers. By his late 20s, his reputation had already spread beyond Nishapur. When the Seljuk vizier Nizam al-Mulk heard of this rising scholar, he invited him to Baghdad, the beating heart of the Islamic world, to join the prestigious Nizamiyyah Madrasa. There, Al-Ghazali's career reached heights few could imagine. His lectures drew hundreds of students, his writings gained immense influence, and his arguments silenced the most brilliant minds of his time. He became known as Hujjat al-Islam, the proof of Islam. To many, he represented the pinnacle of reason and faith united. But beneath the surface of his success, a quiet unease began to grow. Al-Ghazali found himself torn between the outward image of a scholar and the inner uncertainty of a seeker. He began to question not only the philosophers he debated, but the very foundation of his own beliefs. How could a man teach about truth while doubting his own heart? How could one speak of God through reason, yet feel distant from him in spirit? These questions would soon consume him, and lead him into one of the most profound spiritual crises in Islamic history. The crisis did not come suddenly. It grew slowly, like a shadow expanding across the mind. He began to question everything he had built his life upon, his position, his motives, and even the reliability of reason itself. He could debate the deepest questions of theology, but when he turned inward, he found no peace. What was sincerity if his heart was ruled by pride? What was knowledge if it brought him no closeness to God? This conflict soon became unbearable. One morning, as he prepared to lecture before his students, his tongue froze. The words that once flowed effortlessly refused to leave his mouth. His body trembled. His voice was gone. Physicians called it an illness, exhaustion, perhaps, or a disorder of the nerves. But Al-Ghazali knew the truth. His soul had lost its direction. For 6 months, he struggled in silence, torn between duty and despair. He continued to teach outwardly, but inwardly he was hollow. His reasoning no longer satisfied his faith. Logic, which he once believed could explain everything, now seemed incapable of touching the heart. Then, in the year 1095, Al-Ghazali made a decision that stunned his students and colleagues. He left Baghdad. He abandoned his position, his wealth, and his reputation, not for political reasons or personal scandal, but to search for certainty. To many, it seemed madness. To him, it was salvation. He began his journey under the guise of pilgrimage. But it was far more than a physical journey. It was the beginning of an inner exile. For nearly a decade, he lived in seclusion, moving from city to city. In Damascus, he spent long months in the minaret of the Umayyad Mosque, dedicating himself to reflection and remembrance. In Jerusalem, he prayed within the walls of the Masjid al-Aqsa. Later, he retreated to the sacred precincts of Mecca and Medina, seeking to rediscover the essence of faith in solitude. During these years, Al-Ghazali immersed himself in the practices of the Sufis. Through meditation, prayer, and self-discipline, he sought not theoretical knowledge but experiential truth. He realized that understanding God required more than intellect, it required purification of the heart. What began as a crisis of doubt slowly transformed into an awakening. In isolation, he found a peace that no debate could offer. After nearly 10 years of absence, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali returned from his long journey of solitude. He was not the same man who had once stood before the scholars of Baghdad. The confident logician had been replaced by a seeker who had learned that truth is not conquered by reason, but received through purification. When he came back to teaching, his voice was softer, his words fewer, yet their impact far deeper. Settling once again in his hometown of Tus, Al-Ghazali began the work that would define his legacy, i.e., Ulum al-Din, the revival of the religious sciences. It was not simply another theological treatise, it was an attempt to heal the fracture between knowledge and spirituality. He wrote that religious scholarship had lost its soul, that scholars debated endlessly about the law, yet forgot the heart that gives the law meaning. His aim was to bring faith back to life, not as a concept, but as a lived reality. The ayah was both comprehensive and personal. Across its pages, Al-Ghazali explored every aspect of the human experience: worship, ethics, family, wealth, sincerity, and repentance. But behind the structure of a book lay the story of a man who had lived its transformation. Each chapter reflected the path he himself had walked, from pride to humility, from confusion to clarity, from argument to remembrance. Through this synthesis, Al-Ghazali reconciled the world of law, fiqh, with the inner world of mysticism, tasawwuf. He neither rejected reason nor abandoned revelation. Instead, he placed them in balance, declaring that intellect is a lamp, but one that only shines if the heart carries its light. Over the years, his influence spread across the Islamic world and beyond. Philosophers studied him, jurists quoted him, and Sufis revered him. Even centuries later, Christian and Jewish thinkers would engage with his works, recognizing in him a mind that transcended cultural boundaries. He became not only Hujjat al-Islam, the proof of Islam, but a bridge between thought and devotion, logic and love, the world and the soul. In 1111, Al-Ghazali passed away quietly in Tus. It is said that on the morning of his death, he performed his ablution, prayed, and wrapped himself in his shroud before lying down to rest. When his students entered the room, they found him lifeless, a pen beside his head, and a note that read, "I am leaving the world with longing to meet my Lord." Today, when the world is louder than ever, when information floods our minds but empties our souls, Ghazali's question returns to us with new urgency: what is the value of knowledge, if it does not lead us closer to the truth? Perhaps that is why his story endures. Because every age produces its thinkers, but only a few produce those who think, and feel, in search of God. And among them stands Al-Ghazali, the scholar who doubted, the seeker who left everything, and the man who found in silence what the world could never give. Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, please subscribe and support Memoira. Every subscription helps us continue sharing the legacies that shaped our world.